If you are buying Canon lenses in 2026, the question is no longer just which lens is best. The real question is which mount still makes sense. EF-S is cheap. EF is everywhere. RF is the future. But only one of them gives you the cleanest path forward, and one mistake can cost more than the lens itself. Welcome to Alt Buzz Lenses. Subscribe if you want lens guides that actually save you money before you spend it. Here is something most Canon buyers never stop to think about. When you pick up a Canon lens in 2026, you are not just picking a piece of glass. You are picking a generation. A decision about where you have been and where you are going next. Canon has 3 lens mount worlds running at the same time right now. EF-S is the world of affordable APS-C DSLRs, the Rebels, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, cameras that millions of photographers learned on. Lenses designed to be light, cheap, and accessible. EF is the world of Canon's DSLR legacies, full-frame bodies, professional glass, decades of optical engineering that still holds up today. And then there is RF, Canon's mirrorless future. The mount that Canon is actively building around, designing for, and betting its next decade on. 3 mounts, 3 generations, 3 very different answers to the same question. Which Canon lenses should you actually be spending money on right now? This video is not going to tell you RF is the only answer. The real answer depends entirely on where you are standing right now and where you want to go next. EF-S was Canon's answer to a very specific problem. When digital cameras started getting cheaper and more people started shooting, Canon needed lenses that matched the sensor size of their crop sensor DSLRs withoit costing a fortune. EF-S was that answer. Smaller image circles, lighter builds, lower price points. Lenses like the EF-S 10 to 18mm STM and the EF-S 24mm f2.8 STM became beloved starter glass because they were genuinely affordable and genuinely capable for what they were designed to do. But EF-S was never a system you were supposed to grow into forever. It was always designed for a specific camera type, APS-C sensor DSLRs, and that specificity is exactly where its limits live. EF-S lenses cannot cover a full-frame sensor. They were not designed to. The moment a photographer decided to step up from a Rebel to a 5D, those EF-S lenses stayed behind. In 2026, EF-S is still useful, but only if you understand what it is and, more importantly, what it is not. EF is not just a lens mount. It is one of the most important optical systems in the history of photography. Canon introduced EF back in 1987, and for decades, it became the standard that professionals, photojournalists, wedding photographers, sports shooters, and filmmakers trusted with their most important work. The EF catalog is extraordinary. The EF 70 to 200mm f2.8 LIS is still one of the finest telephoto zooms ever made. The EF 85mm f1.4 LIS is still a portrait lens that makes other brands nervous. The EF 24 to 70mm f2.8 L2 is still on professional cameras around the world every single day. And here is what changes everything about EF in 2026, it adapts forward. Canon's EF to EOS R adapter is not a workaround or a compromise. It is a genuinely excellent bridge between Canon's DSLR past and its mirrorless present, preserving autofocus, stabilization data, and full electronic communication. EF is not Canon's future, but it may still be Canon's best value bridge. RF lenses were not just an update to EF. They were a rethink. When Canon removed the mirror from the EOS R system, they collapsed the distance between the lens and the sensor. That shorter flange distance opened up design possibilities that were simply impossible in the EF era. Wider apertures, more complex optical formulas in shorter bodies, faster, more precise communication between lens and camera than EF was ever built to handle. The RF 28 to 70mm f2L is a lens that could not have existed as an EF mount. A constant f2 aperture across a full zoom range was essentially impossible before. The RF 24 to 105mm f2.8L is USM Z, with its built-in neutral density filter, belongs entirely to a new generation of hybrid shooters. RF is where Canon is going, and the pace of new releases makes it very clear they are not looking backward. But RF has one hard limitation every buyer needs to understand. RF lenses do not work on EF DSLR bodies. There is no adapter in that direction. RF is forward only. Before moving on, a quick note on RFS, because many viewers confuse it with EFS. They are not the same. RFS is Canon's APS-C lens line for EOS R mirrorless crop sensor bodies. Same type of photographer as EFS, but a completely different mount from a completely different era. Different system, similar spirit. Now let us get into the comparisons that actually matter. This is the section that matters most before any money changes hands. Compatibility is not just a technical detail. It is the thing that determines whether a lens you buy today will still be useful to you in 3 years. EFS lenses work on Canon APS-C DSLRs and can be adapted to EOS R bodies, but they still behave as crop sensor lenses. They do not suddenly cover a full-frame sensor because they are on a different body. EF lenses work natively on Canon DSLRs and adapt cleanly to EOS R mirrorless bodies. You can shoot EF glass on a 5D Mark IV today and on an EOS R5 tomorrow without losing autofocus or electronic function. RF lenses work on EOS R mirrorless bodies and only EOS R mirrorless bodies. They do not go backward. EF moves forward. RF does not move backward. That one sentence can save a Canon buyer a significant amount of money and a lot of frustration. If you are still on a DSLR and you buy an RF lens thinking you will use it when you upgrade, you cannot use it now. But EF glass bought today will follow you into mirrorless when you are ready. That flexibility is real, and in 2026, it still has genuine value. Cost is where a lot of Canon buyers make emotional decisions. And emotional decisions around lens mounts tend to be expensive ones. EFS is the cheapest entry point in the Canon system. A used EFS 18 to 55mm kit lens or an EFS 24mm f2. 0.8 STM can be found for very little money, and for hobby shooting, family photography, and learning the craft, that is genuinely fine. There is no shame in shooting EFS if the work you are doing matches what EFS was built for. The problem only starts when buyers invest heavily in EFS without understanding its ceiling. EF is where the used market becomes remarkable. Canon made EF lenses for nearly 4 decades, and there is a massive secondary market full of excellent glass at prices that would have seemed impossible 10 years ago. A used EF 70 to 200mm f2.8 LIS in good condition is still a world-class telephoto zoom. A used EF 85mm f1.4 LIS is still a portrait lens that professionals argue over. If your budget is real and your ambitions are serious, the EF used market is one of the most interesting places in photography right now. RF is expensive, but not unreasonably so. The optical engineering behind RF glass justifies the pricing. The RF 24 to 70mm f2.8 LIS, the RF 70 to 200mm f2.8 LS, the RF 100 to 500mm L. These are not impulse purchases, they are commitments. EFS saves money now. EF saves money while protecting quality. RF costs more, but it buys you into the system. Canon is actively building and expanding every year. If you are finding this useful, if this is the kind of breakdown that actually helps before you spend money, subscribe to Alt Buzz Lenses. This channel exists for exactly this, helping photographers make smarter gear decisions before the money leaves their hands. EF lenses were designed around the mirror box. That mirror box required a minimum distance between the rear element of the lens and the sensor, and that distance constrained what lens designers could do. They did extraordinary things within that constraint over nearly 4 decades. The EF 100mm f2.8 L macro IS, the EF 300mm f2.8 LIS, the EF 500mm f4 LIS, all of them exceptional, all of them shaped by the limits of a mirror that no longer exists. RF removes that limit entirely. The shorter flange distance means Canon's optical engineers can place the rear element of a lens much closer to the sensor, enabling apertures that were practically impossible before, optical formulas that could not fit inside the physical space the mirror demanded, and communication speeds between lens and body that EF's original electronic design was never built to handle. The RF 28 to 70mm f2L is the clearest proof. A constant f2 aperture across a full zoom range. A lens that simply could not have been made in the EF era at the same size and performance level. EF was built around the mirror. RF was built after the mirror disappeared. The difference in what that enables is not incremental. It is generational. That does not make EF glass bad. It makes it exactly what it is, the finest expression of one era, now being succeeded by the finest expression of the next. All of this theory means nothing if it does not connect to actual photographers making actual decisions. So let us make it concrete. If you own a Canon Rebel, a 70D, an 80D, or a 90D, and you are happy shooting on that body with no immediate upgrade plan, EF-S still makes sense for budget lenses. The EF-S 10 to 18mm STM is still a genuinely impressive wide angle for crop sensor shooting. The EF-S 24mm f2.8 STM is still one of the best value prime lenses Canon ever made for a crop sensor body. But if you are planning to move to full frame or mirrorless in the next year or two, every pound or dollar you put into EF-S glass is money you will either leave behind or adapt in a crop mode that defeats the purpose of upgrading. EF-S is not dead if the camera in your hand still works, but it is not the mount to build a long-term future around. If you already own EF lenses, especially L-series glass, stop and breathe before you consider selling anything. The EF 24 to 70mm f2.8 L2 is still a professional standard zoom. The EF 100mm f2.8 L macro IS is still one of the finest macro lenses ever made. The EF 85mm f1.4 LIS is still a lens that portrait photographers argue over. None of that changed because Canon released a new mount. EF still makes sense for photographers who already own Canon DSLR glass and want to adapt it to EOS R. It makes sense for buyers who want professional-grade Canon glass without paying current RF prices because the EF used market is deep, well-supplied, and still full of exceptional optics. Buying a used EF 70 to 200mm f2.8 L is II, and pairing it with Canon's adapter on an EOS R body is not a compromise. It is a genuinely intelligent choice. Do not panic sell good glass. EF is still one of Canon's strongest bridges into mirrorless. If you are already shooting on an EOS R body and you are ready to invest in glass, RF is the cleanest path. Not because EF glass stops working on your camera, it does not. But RF lenses are designed specifically for your sensor, your autofocus system, your stabilization engine. No adapter in the chain, no translation layer. Just a lens talking directly to a camera in the language they were both built to speak. RF makes the most sense for photographers already on EOS R cameras, for hybrid photo and video shooters who need Canon's newest autofocus and stabilization, and for professionals whose work demands the absolute best Canon can currently produce. If you are starting fresh on mirrorless and your budget allows it, RF is the cleanest path forward. And for hybrid work, RF glass is not a luxury. It is a professional advantage. So where does this all land? Let us make the final call clean and clear. If you own an older Canon APS-C DSLR with no immediate upgrade plans, EF-S is still a reasonable place to spend modest money on affordable glass. Just understand its limits before you commit. If you own EF lenses already, keep them. Adapt them to your EOS R body if you have one. The EF used market still has strong demand for quality glass, and selling L-series lenses in a panic because a new mount exists is one of the more expensive mistakes a Canon shooter can make. If you are buying your first Canon mirrorless body or are already on EOS R, start building an RF where your budget allows. Or look seriously at the EF used market if you need the breathing room. Both are legitimate strategies. Just make the decision consciously, not reactively. The final verdict is simple. EF-S is the budget past. EF is the value bridge. RF is the future. Canon's lenses can look confusing from the outside. But once you understand the era each one belongs to, the logic becomes clear, and the decision that is right for you becomes a lot easier to make. If this breakdown helped you figure out where your Canon lens money should actually go, subscribe to Alt Buzz Lenses. Drop a comment below and tell me which Canon mount you are currently shooting on, and whether this video changed how you are thinking about your next lens purchase. I read every single one. The wrong Canon mount can quietly close doors you did not even know were open. The right one can follow you further than you expected, through better cameras, bigger jobs, and work that makes the investment feel small. Choose the mount that fits where you are going, not just where you have been. Until the next one.